eventually when you show yourself, the guy's like, wait, I was bamboozled because this little demure lady is not who I got.
They're like, she won't stop talking now. Welcome to the show where we talk all things good, bad, dating. It's Unhinged. I'm Liza Mahachek.
I'm Alicia Coral.
And I'm Savannah Rudisell. We're so glad you are joining us here today. We've got quite a bit to talk about since we've started this podcast, people have been coming out of the woodwork to give us their own takes on dating and a lot of different advice.
Yes. Okay. So hot take. My sister's like, you absolutely should date at work, and I'm like, you never date at work. Well, okay, ladies, what's your take on this?
I think never date at work, never date at work, never.
Liza's saying it. She's saying it from her heart.
You should never do it.
I would like to put that song on repeat.
Yeah, she said, let me put that in my
think
earphone.
about
Okay,
that.
I'm with you guys, but then we just had Kevin Pinto in here, who's one of our, he is one of the digital people here. He does all things.
She said, I don't know.
I don't know who he is. Extraordinary.
But his wife is one of our wonderful videographers. They're married and they work together really well. So he was like, hold up, girls. Y'all are wrong.
But don't you think you also get sick of each other when you work together and then you go home?
I've
think
heard
so.
that.
I'm like, I think I would. But also, I'm like, dating at work, then if you break up,
That's my fear. That's my fear.
my
If you break up
gosh.
and go left. Okay, what's other bad advice you've got? Or maybe good advice, girls.
Aside from date at work or don't date at work, I've definitely, I think more of my bad advice that I've heard has come from the older generation, and particularly like male
Okay.
perspectives.
Okay.
Shocking.
No, some people would say we're a little unfair, we're a little lopsided, but in my experience, some of the advice is just like, oh, well, like tone yourself down. You know, make yourself more palatable, at least at first, right? That I think is probably the worst piece of advice that I've taken. And then when I implement that, I'm like, why is this relationship so bad?
yeah.
Right.
Oh, because I didn't show up as myself.
Exactly. Because
Exactly.
eventually when you show yourself, the guy's like, wait, I was bamboozled because this little demure lady is not who I got.
They're like, she won't stop talking now.
I was like, where did she go?
talks
I
back.
liked her. And I'm
Right.
like, why don't you like me? Now I'm being myself.
Right.
Me.
Yeah.
Exactly. Because you can't the bait and switch of. But also, here's the other thing is that you want to come and show up as yourself because you also don't want to be with somebody who wants you to change yourself.
Facts.
That's so
Facts.
true.
Facts.
You know?
Yep.
But, you grow up listening to Guys and Dolls, where it's marry the man today and change his ways tomorrow.
Yeah, that doesn't work.
Okay, musical theater.
Yeah, that's right. Little
Nerds.
throwback for
No,
you.
just kidding.
Liza, what about you? You ever taken or not taken?
I don't think that I've gotten necessarily bad advice.
Yeah.
I think that a good piece that I've learned, from people is to just be yourself as much as you
Yeah.
possibly can. And also the other thing is like, I take your time in when you hang out with these people.
Yes.
Because you can so easily enmesh yourself in your life with their lives. And then a lot of times you end up losing relationships that are important to you, whether that's friendships because you're no longer investing in those. And it's so easy to kind of lose sight of, let's say if you're just starting dating this person, it's within the first 6 months, and then you're hanging out with them every single weekend. Then a lot of times you're going to miss out on opportunities with your friends. And whether or not you stay together with that person, you are going to need those friendships regardless. So you still need to continue to show up for people. And so something that my mom would always tell me was like when I was in high school, she's like, you hung out with him once, you're good for the week.
But Kathy's right.
for the week.
Kathy's
But
right.
it's
Kathy's
true.
right. That's
It's
right.
true. You don't need to be together all the time. I think
That's
that
called codependent, Liza.
right?
Yeah.
And I think that you don't always want to be a we.
Yeah.
You want to have your own individual lives and you want to prioritize that as well. And I know that also comes at a sacrifice with your relationship, but I think that you're better off doing it. And so I think that that's a bit of relationship advice, at least being in my single era, that I think is very true.
Well, I think another one is do not ignore the red flags. Because I've done that. I'd be like, no, that's okay. It's not that.
Yeah.
No, but I'm not doing that anymore. Like, first red flag,
Mm-hmm.
I'm out. Because the first one's going to go into the next one, and you're just inevitably going to end up in heartbreak. So just stop it before it starts. Like, red flags, get out of there.
Yeah.
But then it also brings the question of like, are we being too picky?
No.
Because I think
Too
that
picky.
too picky, where it's this handoff of, if this isn't my absolute perfect person, am I being, you know what
They
I mean?
don't have to be perfect, but there's some things that you dismiss early on where later on in the relationship, you're like, wait a minute, like it was there. I just chose to not see it. They don't
Do you
have
have
to
an
be perfect.
example, Alicia?
Liza.
She said, "Do I?"
Well, my examples are real extreme, so let me come back to you. Like it was something palatable, but I'm sure I do. Yeah.
Who do you guys trust the most to either watch out for those red flags that you're maybe a little bit too keen to ignore, or kind of test your time limits? Like who are you relying on to help you check yourself on that?
I guess right now, you guys, myself, and I can say that for the first time in my life, I'm really sure of myself. I've worked on myself. I know exactly what I want. So I don't need to like turn left or turn right to be like, hey, I need your advice. Nope. I know in my gut what's right and what's wrong.
Nice.
I think that also it's difficult because a lot of times you want your friends and your family to look out for you, but sometimes it can just come across as like, oh, well, you don't like them because you don't like them.
Right.
And so then it can be difficult to kind of decipher and figure out, like, are you saying this because you actually think that I'm hanging out with them too much? Or are you saying this because you think this person's bad for me? Or, you know, so it a lot of times can be difficult, especially when you are in that relationship. And looking back, you know, you might look back on a relationship and be like, that person was right.
Right.
And, you know, but you might not see it in the moment. And that's what makes it so difficult, I think, when you're in it. And so I think that a couple of friends of mine, we came up with like a pact of, like, here's our statement on if we don't like your partner.
Right.
Like, let's say you need your partner to think you're funny. Like, they would say to me, hey, we don't think that this person thinks you're funny. And that is like the key sign that you already had a conversation, like, let's say 6 months before you even found this relationship, and now you're in it and your friends are like, hey, we don't know if this is the perfect person for you, and we're just giving you a heads up in a way. So it might be smart to make a code word with like a code word with your friends to do that.
Because it can be such a hard position to be in or put your friends and family in.
Yeah.
Because if they see that you're happy or you say that you're happy,
Yeah.
for them to be like,
Yeah. Especially, I know all of us are really close with our families. So, you know, those lines can get blurred where you're all in each other's stuff.
Yeah.
And it's like sometimes your friends might be a better barometer than your actual family.
That's fair.
Another person too, definitely I trust is the therapist that I'm seeing now, right?
Period.
Yes.
If I have to go to her, you know, the next time I see her and explain my choices, right? And kind of give me a look like, and was that a good choice? Or was that a bad
When
choice?
she asked that, are you like, yeah, it was a bad choice?
Every time. And she does it so nicely. And I'm so glad that I have her, right? Because it's acting again as a mirror, right? She's a trained professional, trained to be just a kind of a neutral bouncing off point, and which is something that I definitely need. And of course, yeah, she wants the best for me, but she doesn't have the preconceived notions that friends and family, you know, she's not my mom, but I have to answer to her still like every week, every other week. And so if I have to come to her saying, hey, I've made a bad choice,
you don't want to disappoint her.
I gotta go in. Yeah.
All right.
Well, also, we're going to get to talk with somebody who is a relationship expert. She is a life coach and a relationship coach. And so we talked with her a little bit about her perspective because, again, our friends and our family might have different opinions on who we should be dating. And so she's somebody who kind of gave us another perspective of maybe who we should be looking at dating, who we should be looking at staying with. So this is a little look at our interview with her. We have Dr. Jackie Del Rosario, who is a relationship expert, and she's here to tell us a little bit about kind of the modern dating and how it works in today's world. Because especially, you know, Dr. Jackie, bringing in social media, I feel like has changed a lot of aspects of dating. So what are the biggest difference that you have seen in terms of dating in the modern age since Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, since all those things have been introduced?
I think that in the beginning of the dating phase, if we go back to the industrial age, people were trying to find someone that they could love and build a life with. And then you can get to the millennials, and now the story has really changed quite a bit. It's who can I be with or coexist at this moment? And no one's really seeing forever. It's about what can we do now that's going to satisfy my human needs or the journey that I'm on at this juncture of my life. So it's very different. The lens that we're looking at through is not this long-term lens. It's a lens that's more immediate, right? So we see that the number of people marrying every year is slightly declining, and it declined more in certain ethnic groups than others. But there is a different perspective about what we're after and what we want.
Well, what are the questions that you should say you're online dating, which a lot of us are? What are the questions that you should be asking, the important questions, if you're looking for something long term?
Well, that's it. You need to know, first of all, what do I want? And then you'd be able to need to be able to communicate that to the other individuals so you can see if there's parity. Because if I'm wanting something long term and the person that I'm seeing is not, and they just want to stay on the friendship vibe, let's just see what happens, let's build. But what does that look like? What does it include? Does it mean that we're intimate and we're just building and seeing? Or does it mean that we're just gonna, be on the in the friend zone and just go out and somebody to be more of a companion with? And so I think knowing what you're looking for is central. And here's the thing that I want to say to viewers or listeners is this. I think it's really important. Whenever I'm approached, the number one thing that people ask me is they say, "How do I find someone?" And I'm thinking to myself, you're a good looking guy, good looking gal, or guy. What is your problem with finding someone? And what they begin to invariably explain is the difficulty navigating the dating terrain. So they've done the little, the cuffing season, they've done the curveball crush, they've done a lot of those things. And now they're still finding that there's a waning in their hearts, that they want something deeper, something more permanent, something more defined. And I'd say to people everywhere, know what you want and go after it with authenticity because it's out there for you. Just because other people are doing this and so doesn't mean that you have to do it. That's supposed to work for you. Go after what you need. And I believe if you do, what you need is attracted to you.
I think there's a huge debate and probably more than two camps on this, but whether or not social media and dating apps have helped or hurt people in their search for prospects. It feels like you know so much about a person before you ever meet them. What's your take on how that's contributed here to making it easier, harder, or just different as to dating in a technology age?
I would start with a question. You say that it seems like you know so much more now, but what do you really know? I know what a filtered picture looks like or a post that you put up after God knows what, it was something that was posed. It wasn't something that was just a candid moment in most instances. So I know what I was able to promote for you to know about me. That's a difference than knowing someone deeply. When I really know someone, I don't just know what they put up about themselves that they want others to see and to witness. I know the things that are ugly. I know the things that you don't commonly speak to other people. I know who you are when you're happy and when you're sad. I know how you respond when you're angry or mad. That's the difference. I think the depth is what I'm hearing that people are aching for, but they don't know how to go after it. So I think that's a better question. What do people really know? There is a lot of information, but how authentic and genuine is the information? And because it's not really captured in real time moments, it's something that you're reading. It could be a day, a moment or two later. It could be weeks or months afterward. This is where you're gathering most of your data. And I'm going to tell you, when you're in a deep relationship with someone, all of that makes the difference between day and night because you need to know who you're in bed with, for lack of a better phrase.
Literally.
You want to know, what do they believe in? How are they going to respond when you're met with this particular challenge? It's the certainty that we have that makes us feel relaxed in a relationship. It's those things that makes us feel that we have security. We feel safe and secure because things are defined.
All right, well, we are back with more from Dr. Jackie Del Rosario, who is a relationship expert. And now we're going to be talking a little bit about emotional availability. And I know that for a lot of people, they talk about, going into relationships where they're looking at these people that they're dating and they're like, yeah, sure, you're on a date, but are you actually emotionally available and ready to be in a relationship right now? So what are the key signs that you are seeing in people so that they don't make this mistake where either they're entering into the dating pool and thinking that they're ready for it, but maybe not actually being, and then also vice versa, when you're going on a date with somebody and you're seeing, hey, I don't know if this person actually is attracted to me. I don't know if they're actually wanting to be in a relationship or just a situationship. What are the things that we need to be looking out for?
Well, I think the first thing is you need to figure out, where are you? If you just got over a harmful, hurtful breakup and it's only several weeks later, even a month later sometimes, if you've not self-actualized, why are you out there again? get whole first.
Get home.
Get home, right? Don't be spreading that hurt around. That's right.
Was there writing on the wall? Like, how did you get hurt? Was there writing on the wall that you just closed your eyes to? Like, did you not see signs? Were you not, you see what I'm saying? So I would always want to learn from my last endeavor so that I take that wisdom and that know-how with me going forward. I'm not speaking this stuff because I read a whole bunch of books. Yeah, I read some books. I have a doctorate, but it's also because of life experience. One thing was when I was in college, I wasn't afraid to be alone. I was. And then I realized that that makes you make some compromising decisions because you could already met that knucklehead last week and knew that he was not the one. But Friday night comes and you don't have anybody to hang out with. Ring, ring. And here he is. And he wants to go out with you. You already know. But when you have a fear of being alone, guess what? He looks better now. You start talking yourself down on what you already knew to be the right thing for you. You start talking that down because now him or be alone.
Liza and I have the opposite problem. I think that right now we are in our peace era, like loving. Like, at what point do you get out of that peaceful era and put yourself back out there? Because, you know, the thing is, I like coming home and there's no drama, but I also would like to meet and date somebody.
Yeah, yeah. So to me, it sounds like you've done work. You have to just discern, am I avoidant right now? And that's why I'm saying the peace. Yeah. Or is that the narrative that you're telling yourself that this is better because it's peace? Or have you really done the work? Can you answer any of the questions that I just threw out there from the last encounter? So in that last relationship, if you don't have those answers, then that lets me know that you've not done the work.
You mentioned
you will always get answers when you ask yourself those questions.
Yeah.
And you'd mentioned the term avoidant, right? Are you being avoidant? I'm curious to know your take here. I think attachment styles is something people who are doing the work or have done the work may have looked into before. Can you tell us a little bit more for those who aren't familiar with what attachment styles look like, what those typically, how they resonate?
I love attachment style theory because attachment style kind of explains patterns, right? So it makes a lot of sense out of some of the people that you might be engaging with, right? Because it's going to, your attachment style depends on the way that you were brought up, that you were nurtured as a tot. Did your primary caregiver make you feel safe and loved all the time? If they did, you have a secure attachment style. If they were sometimes, they were irregular, or they didn't meet your emotional needs, you will then become anxious, which to me in a nutshell means that you're always worried about the status of the relationship, or you always have this fear that they will leave you or abandon you. And then you have the avoidant attachment style. So when their needs weren't met as a young person, a young tot, what they did is they just decided, well, you know what? I won't need anybody. I'm going to pull inward and I'm going to be my own God and I'm going to take care of my own self. So they're not people that like to connect. So they avoid connections. They avoid very deep, soulful, filled relationships. And they like things to be more surface. And they love their independence. They're going to always want to pull away. They feel better when they're not sharing too much with you. So you're not going to know all the details with an avoidant. And then you have disorganized, which is exactly that. It's a person that has an insecure attachment style, but it doesn't follow any set pattern. So they're sometimes they're hot and heavy. They're deep in love and able to really connect. And then the next thing you know, tomorrow they pull away. And then they're distant and they're independent. And so the hardest one to really deal with in a relationship is someone that's disorganized, because at least when you can recognize a pattern, you know what to do, right? Mm-hmm. So typically, if with someone that is avoidant let's just say anxious, they're going to make you feel that they're very needy. They're very codependent. If you're with someone that is avoidant, you're always going to be trying to figure out, why do they go through this thing, where they just can't take the relationship to a deeper level. If you're married to one, they have sex with you instead of make love with you because they're just unable or unwilling or both to make that really deep, deep connection at a soulish level with the other individual. The reason why I want to talk about this is because it's important in our common dating area, our current dating era now, where I see people hurting, but they don't understand what the answer is. The answer is you need a true, meaningful relationship.
Is it possible for people to have a relationship if you have an anxious attachment and your partner has an avoidant attachment? are those relationships able to be successful?
Good question.
If you're willing to do the work, and I'm talking about deep founded work, not that I mentioned that, yes, I agree, I am avoidant, but now I don't do the activities or the exercises to bring myself up out of that. And there's a lot of tools that can be used to do that, but it does take work because you're divorcing yourself from the person or the defense mechanisms that you've become so familiar and comfortable with. So that's work. So
Well-
it takes more than just acknowledging. You got to now roll up your sleeves and actually begin to do the work so that you transcend who you were to become who you're going to be.
I feel like also a lot of times people might get into therapy when they are in a tumultuous time in their life.
Yeah.
But for people who are really wanting to work on themselves, what are some questions that they can ask themselves if they've moved out of that kind of tumultuous time in their life? Now they're in therapy or just doing self-work. What are some things that you can do to like really get to know yourself? Because I think that a lot of times, whether you're in a relationship or out of a relationship, you might not really truly know who you are or, you know, kind of how you feel about yourself.
Well, the best remedy for that is spending time with yourself and getting to know yourself and getting to find out the areas of you that you're, you feel incomplete or that you're unhappy with, and then beginning to ask the questions. So this work is a work of layers, right? So it's like you are as an individual, much like an onion. So you might start to ask, like, why am I not comfortable being alone? What is it that I fear or what is it that I feel when I think about being alone? And then start to unpack each of those things that might come up because they will come up. That's just how the brain is wired. So you ask a question, it begins to search for the answer. And so when I tell clients that it's that simple, it's just having the time to process it. So to me, you should build a habit whereby every day you unpack each day. You don't let a lot accumulate before you begin to do the unpacking. For me, it's my drive home. After I leave the office, I go home. The first thing I do is shower. So I'm in the shower on my way home as well. And I'm replaying my day. I'm looking at things that happened during the day and I'm dealing with them as I am recognizing them. Because, I run 2 companies. I do television. I have a practice. I do a lot. So I'm busy. So in the moment, I'm not going to be able to, sometimes I don't even recognize things, but as I'm processing at the close of the day, some things will stick out. Oh, did you see her expression? She didn't like what you said. Maybe you're going to have to go back and repair that. Or, you were upset about that. Why did that upset you so much? You're thinking that you're worried about what somebody else is thinking. What do you feel about this moment that you're in? And using self-talk, scientifically effective. Talking to yourself works. Doesn't mean you have to move your lips like I am right now, but just talking to yourself and processing. Another part of your brain, your frontal lobe, which deals with reasoning, turns on, and you're able to begin to unclutter and go through and bring resonance to some of the things that you've experienced throughout the day. Same thing in a relationship. I tell all of the couples that I work with, every year you tune up your car, you go get a physical, your annual exam. What do you do for your relationship? You should see somebody every year to go through the collective things that happen throughout the course of that year so that you start the new year clean. Now, I prefer coaching as opposed to therapy. Therapy, you might say, well, what's the difference? Therapy is more about who you were and what your past traumas were. And you analyze those. You try to deconstruct them. The past is the past, period, dot. You can't bring it back. So coaching, what I like about it is it's shorter term and you get results faster because it's more about taking responsibility for where you are and now focusing on where you want to be.
And so that's going to do it here for this week's episode of Unhinged. Again, dating with the doctor. I think we all going to have some things to think about now here a little bit, maybe some more things to bring to our personal therapist. I bet.
Me as well. Well, Dr. Jackie was amazing, you guys. And we'll see you next week for another great episode of Unhinged.
Yeah. Bye.
Queen City News Plus. Just search Queen City News on your smart TV's app store.